Welcome to this tutorial on taalleer, how to apply voegwoorde when you write longer sentences. This video is specifically aimed to explain the rule when you start with a group 3 conjunction and or with a group 2 conjunction al. Let's delve into it. As you know, we divide the voegwoorde up in 3 groups, groep 1, 2 and 3. Group 3 I specifically make red because that's the one that you know by now that moves the verb to the end. And recently I came upon a term called the graveyard section of where the verbs go and sit when they get kicked to the end of the sentences. But this video specifically is also going to show how we start with the group 3 conjunction. Kom ons kyk verder. So, a quick recap. Group 1, subject, verb 1, normal sentence structure. Nothing changes. If you are unfamiliar with the double barrel group 1s, then conjunctions, then you can look at the video about those specifically. This is mainly aimed at your normal group 1 conjunctions where you simply use it to join two sentences. For group 2, as you know, we put the group 2 conjunction in the middle of the sentence, and it acts as a magnet and it brings the verb 1 next to it. So your second sentence would have the structure verb 1 subject instead of subject verb 1. That is a common rule. But now if we had to start with a group 2 conjunction, as you can see there at the corner, at the bottom left corner, then you do the similar structure as you would have done with the second sentence. So this is going to take a little bit of thinking. So let me show you what we do. So imagine you take the group 2 conjunction and you place it in the middle of the two sentences and you apply the rule of the verb 1 that goes next to that conjunction. Imagine you take that sentence that you just did the rule application on and you move it to the beginning and you start with that and you leave it as you placed it with the verb following the group 2 conjunction. And then when you, at the end of that sentence, you put your comma. And then the only new thing that you must remember here is you are going to again move your verb 1 to the middle. So when you start with the group 2 conjunction, your verb 1s of both sentences technically moves to the front of each sentence. Have a look at that, replay that if you need to see. Look at the example if you want to ensure you understand that. So instead of saying, ek was elke week my troeteldier, al hou hulle nie daarvan nie, you can start with, al hou hulle nie daarvan nie, was ek nog steeds elke week my troeteldier. So it's one of those sentences that you can swap around. Here is an example of another group 2 conjunction, but obviously we can't start with group 2 conjunction done. In this case, done, that goes into 2. But what done does is done can change into the past tense to 2, and then you must treat it as a group 2 conjunction. So the only group 2 conjunction you can start two sentences with is the conjunction al, although blah 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 blah. Okay, so that's the only one you can start with. Any other group 2 conjunction you cannot begin with. Well, you can, but it's not grammatically correct. This they won't necessarily test in a Cambridge exam. I'm lying, they will test this in a Cambridge exam. For instance, IB, CAPS as well. And for the American curriculum, it can actually be quite supportive of your general creative writing sentences as well. So the other important rule of any of a group 2 conjunction is just the past tense for done, which is your dawn rule, which we'll come back to and cover again as well. If we move to group 3 conjunctions, we know the rule is that you put it in the middle and it kicks the verb to the graveyard, to the end of the sentence. But now if we want to start with that sentence, again, we do the same what we did with al as a group 2 conjunction. We apply the rule as we would if we put it in the middle, and then we take that sentence and we move it to the beginning. And the verb still stays at the end, but now you put a comma down after that sentence. Now it's an additional rule that you must remember. So up to there, everything is kind of the same, except for when you start with a group 2 conjunction al, you just do the same in the front of the sentence. That's all. In the beginning sentence, the first sentence, that's all. Group 3, you move it to the beginning of the sentence. You move the sentence to start with, and the verb still goes to the end of the sentence. But now we add a rule and we say, okay, remember what we did for al. We moved the verb next to al hou hulle nie daarvan nie, and we moved the was to the middle. Was ek elke week my troeteldier. So we swapped the verbs in both cases, and you are going to do the same here. So you're going to follow the group 3 rule up to the comma, and then you're going to move your verb to the middle as well. And we've got our 2 verb groups with a comma separated. Omdat ek 'n paar hoenders op my erf het, kom eet almal by my ontbyt. Okay, so omdat pushes the verb het to the end, and omdat pulls the verb 1 from the second sentence to the middle of the sentence as well. So the second sentences in both group 2 and 3 starting conjunctions looks the same, as the same structure, but in the first sentence you follow the original rule. And then obviously with the dawn rule, you must remember that the dawn rule, those words changes to in the past, but they stay family then. So if you have a wanneer and they say now rewrite the sentence in the past tense, then you change wanneer to, but it still stays group 3 rule after that. Okay, and there's more examples of that. If you start with a group 3 conjunction, if it's past tense, you still have your verbs in the middle of the sentences, but this time it will be like het, het, of het, was. Look at those examples there. And then these are the ones I spoke about earlier. The dawn rule, dan, as, wanneer, and no. Dan being a group 2 conjunction, as and wanneer being group 3 conjunctions. And they all change to in the past tense. And they must follow the rule of the word they came from. All right, and remember, I heart Woody Woodpecker is het wees word. When they are being kicked to the graveyard section of the verbs, to the end of the sentence, they jump over the verb to and go and lies between the verb to and the infinitive. So they go over the verb basically. And then just remember that when you work with betreklike voornaamwoorde, it is very similar to group 3 because you're using wat of wisse of relative pronoun waarvan. Usually they are obviously all question or related to question words, so therefore they group 3 conjunctions. So therefore anything coming after them will follow the rule of the group 3 conjunction rule. And there are some more examples of the dawn rule that you can practice, pause and practice. And that brings us to the end of the most difficult versions of Voegwoorde. It won't get more difficult than this.